of the Board of Governors of the Asian Development Bank. I am Dominguez, your MC for this morning. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished host, the Chair of the Board of Governors, the Honorable Carlos G. Dominguez, Secretary of Finance of the Philippines, the President of the Asian Development Bank, Mr. Takehiko Nakao, and the Secretary of the ADB, Mr. Woo Chong. We also welcome the governors of the 67 members of ADB and special guests from our host government. This year's annual meeting is very exciting as ADB pivots to the future and charts a new path to 2030. ADB is hosting this event together with the government of the Philippines. We are now live on Facebook, and we invite you to share, post, comment, and talk to us on our social media channels using the hashtag ADB Manila. To give his opening address, may I now call on the President of the Asian Development Bank, Mr. Takehiko Nakao.
ADB governors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to join the Honorable Secretary Carlos G. Dominguez, Chair of the Board of Governors, in welcoming all of you to this 51st annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank. Mabuhay. I'd like to thank the government of the Philippines and its people for the excellent arrangements and warm hospitality. The Philippines played a very important role in establishing ADB in 1966 and ever since has been home to ADB. The firm commitment and support of the government over the years has been essential to the success of our operations throughout Asia and the Pacific. And as Secretary Dominguez mentioned to me 1 year ago, this annual meeting in Manila is an important opportunity to start reinventing ADB. Today, the Philippines is among the fastest growing economies in the region based on strong investment and consumption. President Duterte's administration has been implementing a comprehensive 10-point socio-economic reform agenda, which includes investing in people and promoting rural development. The government is also implementing an ambitious build infrastructure plan. ADB is financing urban mass transport in Manila and Davao, the railway connecting Malolos and Clark, roads and bridges in Mindanao, and clean water sanitation in local communities. ADB is also supporting school-to-work programs, financial inclusion, and capital market reform, and conditional cash transfer to poor families in the Philippines. Let me now report on our achievements in the past year. ADB continues to respond to the growing needs of the region. In 2017, ADB's own financial commitments, including loans, guarantees, and equity investments, were a record $20 billion. Of these amounts, our private sector operations amounted to $2.3 billion, and they mobilized commercial co-financing of $5.7 billion. Including official and commercial co-financing and technical assistance, ADB's total commitments last year were $32 billion, a 26% increase from 2016. Approvals for the financing of climate mitigation and adaptation reached a record $4.5 billion in 2017, a 21% increase from the previous year. We are in a good position to achieve our targets of doubling annual climate finance to $6 billion by 2020. These strong results were made possible by our solid capital base, thanks to the successful merger of Asian Development Fund lending operations with the ordinary capital resource balance sheet, which took effect at the start of 2017. We need further efforts to accelerate disbursements and increase co-financing. In this regard, ADB approved a new procurement policy in 2017 to reduce procurement time, support the adoption of high-level technologies, and better address life cycle costs. Along with our increased volume of operations, we are promoting innovative approaches and advanced technologies. For example, in Indonesia and Pakistan, we are using satellite data and remote sensing to improve irrigation. In the Pacific, we are supporting a regional disaster contingent financing program that will enable budget support to countries in the immediate aftermath of disasters. On the funding side, ADB stepped up efforts to raise local currency funding to meet the growing demand for local currency loans in our private sector operations. ADB also issued new thematic bonds, such as gender bonds and health bonds. I'll now turn briefly to the economic outlook for Asia and the Pacific. Developing Asia grew by 6.1% in 2017, and we expect growth will be 6% in 2018. Excluding the four newly industrialized economies, developing Asia's rate of growth is expected to be 6.5% in 2018. It is encouraging that global and regional trade has started to grow robustly again since the beginning of last year. China is expected to grow 6.6% in 2018, even as its growth continues to gradually moderate. In India, growth should pick up to 7.3%. The ASEAN region, with a total population of 650 million, is continuing to grow at 5.2%. The recent rebound in oil prices has helped relieve fiscal pressures in oil-producing economies in Central Asia. In countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Vietnam, growth continues at 7% or even more. At this pace, GDP will double in about 10 years. Although challenges remain, Asia and the Pacific is well positioned to sustain its growth momentum, supported by robust private consumption and investment, and anchored by sound macroeconomic policies and structural reforms. Active trade and foreign direct investment are the foundation of Asia's economic success and are essential for continuing solid growth. Despite current disputes among some countries, we firmly believe that countries should make utmost efforts to maintain and foster an open multilateral trade system. One significant factor that will help drive the region's future growth is advancements in technology. Allow me to expand on this issue. New technologies are emerging faster than people can imagine. New technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, and Internet of Things have huge potential to raise productivity and improve our daily lives. In Asia, young entrepreneurs and homegrown innovations are becoming an increasingly important part of the economy. At the same time, there is growing concern that the rise of new technologies could cause widespread job losses. ADB's research, however, as described in our Asian Development Outlook 2018 report, indicates that there are several reasons to be more optimistic. First, a job, whether it is cognitive or manual, comprises many kinds of tasks. New technologies often can automate only some of those tasks, not the whole job. Second, job automation takes place only where it is both technically and economically feasible. Even if automatic sewing machines can produce T-shirts, if they require a huge capital investment, they cannot compete with human workers who are paid reasonably. Third, as our research shows, higher incomes driven by higher productivity may substantially increase demand for products, more than offsetting job losses caused by new technologies. Fourth, new technologies create new occupations and industries. In the early 20th century, auto mechanics and car dealers emerged alongside the car industry. Today, we are seeing many new types of high-skilled jobs in information and communication technologies, ICT, healthcare, education, and all kinds of business and consumer services. Nevertheless, new technologies can alter the skills required for certain jobs and cause unemployment. Advances in technology may make the less skilled more likely to experience lower wages, thereby widening income inequality. This will require proactive and comprehensive actions by the governments on skills development, labor regulation, social protection, and income redistribution. Governments must promote ICT infrastructure, protect personal data and privacy, and ensure fair competition. Governments can also apply new technologies to improve public service delivery. In education, for example, adaptive learning and remote technologies will enhance learning outcomes in schools. Telemedicine, AI, and the use of big data will have great potential to improve health services. Ladies and gentlemen, last year we celebrated ADB's 50th anniversary and reflected on our past achievements. Today, I'd like to speak about the future and about our new long-term strategy 2030. Our region has experienced a fundamental transformation. Half a century ago, Asia was the poorest region in the world. Today, the economic center of gravity is shifting to Asia and the Pacific, and almost all our developing member countries have advanced to middle-income status. Yet, large challenges remain and new ones are emerging. There is still persistent poverty. We must address rising inequality, growing environmental pressures, and rapid urbanization. Aging in some countries and the increasing youth population in others present opportunities as well as challenges. Strategy 2030 will renew our strong commitment to eradicate extreme poverty in the region and expand our vision to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. These aspirations will be aligned with the international agenda such as Sustainable Development Goals, and the Paris Club Agreement on Climate Change. Recognizing different conditions in our developing member countries, we will pursue differentiated approaches. The country partnership strategy will continue to be the primary platform for defining ADB's operational focus in each country. I'd like to highlight 10 priorities in Strategy 2030. First, ADB will tackle remaining poverty and increasing inequalities. We will help create quality jobs, promote secondary and tertiary education, expand universal health care, and strengthen social protection programs. We will focus on lagging areas and pockets of poverty even in middle-income countries. Second, we will help accelerate progress in gender equality. We'll continue to incorporate gender elements when we design and implement projects and programs. We'll support gender-focused projects in education, health, and financial inclusion. We'll promote gender equality in decision-making through our projects and technical assistance. When I was in Bangladesh this February, I visited ADB-supported ICT laboratory at a rural secondary school. I was impressed by the enthusiasm of girls and boys to study ICT. One girl stood up and said she wanted to be a satellite engineer for NASA in the United States. Prime Minister Hasina of Bangladesh was very proud when I shared this story with her. Third, we will scale up our support to combat climate change, build climate and disaster resilience, and enhance environmental sustainability. ADB will help countries to achieve their nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. We will invest in the conservation and restoration of natural capital. We will improve the water, food, energy nexus. Fourth, we will build livable cities that are competitive, green, resilient, and inclusive. ADB will support multimodal mass public transport systems in cities, clean water and sanitation, and urban health facilities. ADB will help cities expand sources of funding and enhance inclusive, integrated, and participatory urban planning. Fifth, we will promote rural development and food security. ADB will focus on developing agricultural value chains from farm to market through investment in rural roads, storage facilities, and mobile connectivity. We will foster advanced technologies in farming. Sixth, we will strengthen governance. ADB will support public sector management reforms through policy-based lending and dialogue. ADB will help governments enhance their capacity to prepare, implement, and operate high-quality projects. ADB will help raise standards globally for environmental and social safeguards, sound financial management, and anti-corruption. Seventh, we will foster regional cooperation and integration. We will build on our experience in sub-regional cooperation initiatives since the 1990s in Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. We will promote regional public goods such as transportation and logistical networks and protection against communicable diseases. We will support a regional approach to energy security, education, tourism, and financial stability. ADB will cooperate with existing and emerging international and regional initiatives. Eighth, we will mobilize private sector resources to meet the region's huge development financing needs. Our private sector operations help fill market gaps and promote private sector participations in infrastructure and other development finance. We will further scale up our private sector operations, widen their geographic coverage, including new and frontier markets, and expand operations in social sectors such as health and education. We will also continue to promote the effective use of public-private partnerships. We will enhance resource mobilization through credit enhancement operations and co-financing with bilateral and multilateral partners. Ninth, we will further strengthen our role as a provider and facilitator of knowledge. I strongly believe that ADB's value addition is combining finance with knowledge, whether tacit or explicit. We will develop and deliver integrated solutions that extend across sectors. ADB's knowledge work will strengthen the network of scholars and think tanks in Asia and beyond, and offer Asian perspectives. 10th, implementing the new strategy will require a stronger, better, and faster ADB. We will continue to use our financial resources efficiently and creatively. We will invest in our workforce, promote diversity, including gender balance, and ensure respectful workplace. We will expand our presence on the ground. We will dramatically modernize business processes to speed up our services to clients. Our One ADB approach will break down silos and bring together expertise across ADB. We will continue to work with a wide range of partners. Ladies and gentlemen, we plan to complete Strategy 2030 by mid-2018. We already held extensive consultations. I appreciate the guidance from governors at this meeting. We'll continue to seek views from various stakeholders, including civil society organizations. Our task ahead is to reinvent ADB and meet the challenges of a transforming Asia and the Pacific. In the Philippines, there is a proverb, kung may tinanim, may aanihim, which means the seeds we plant today offer harvest for the future. Together, let us continue our journey to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Nakao. Now to deliver his remarks, let us welcome this year's Chair of the Board of Governors, the Honorable Carlos G. Dominguez, the Philippines Secretary of Finance.
Asian Development Bank President Takehiko Nakao, fellow finance ministers and ADB governors, distinguished guests, friends, good morning. We are greatly honored to be hosting the Asian Development Bank's 51st annual meeting this year. As we begin the 6th decade of the bank's work, there is a sense of a cycle ending and another one beginning. In the midst of the major shifts in the region and the changes driven by new digital technologies, we certainly have to examine the work of this institution in terms of what is new and what is forthcoming. Hosting the ADB headquarters over the past 5 decades has been a source of immense pride for the Philippines. It certainly brought us into close contact with the experts and the emerging development thinking from across the vast expanse of countries served by this great institution. Locating in Manila was a sound decision. It certainly brought the bank closer to the realities of an emerging society, especially an emerging society such as ours, with its intermittent episodes of turbulence and also moments of impressive achievement. It definitely brought the bank an ample supply of highly talented English-speaking personnel to support its operations. The partnership between the ADB and the Philippines has been an especially fruitful one. The bank has been a reliable and responsive partner in mobilizing resources and technical support needed for our development. The bank helped us build the critical infrastructure to support our economic growth. The ADB was generous in its support during the debt crisis of the 1980s and the Asian financial crisis of the late 90s. The institution stood with us in solidarity when calamity struck in this vulnerable archipelago. We are extremely grateful for this strong partnership. It has enabled us in many ways to improve the quality of life of our people. It contributed to the strong foundations on which we now build a strongly resurgent economy. We commend ADB President Takehiko Nakao for the great work he has put in leading this institution through a dramatically changing world. He is committed to the bank's long-term vision and remains open to reinvention of the institution's programs as we move into the more technologically driven age. Many things have changed in the Asia-Pacific the past 5 decades. The center of gravity of the global economy has decisively shifted to Asia. The world's 2 most populous countries, Asia and India, are now among the planet's largest economies. They have become the principal engines of growth for the global economy. The ASEAN region, a common market with 640 million consumers, includes some of the fastest growing economies. In a period haunted by rising protectionist regimes and threatened by autarkic politics, the Asia-Pacific stands as compelling proof that free trade brings rapid progress. This part of the world, after all, saw the liberation of hundreds of millions of people from the grip of poverty. Over the next few years, this part of the world will demonstrate to the rest that free markets are adapting to rapidly changing technologies that provide the best conditions for inclusive growth. The Asia-Pacific is proud of its economic achievement over the past few decades. The ADB played a catalytic role in that economic achievement. I am particularly proud of the fact that the Philippines is fully engaged with the rapid growth of the region. Fully capacitated by the economic reforms and more efficient institutions built over the past 3 decades, the country is at the forefront of the region's remarkable development. Over the past 2 years, our GDP grew by an average of 6.7%. We seek to grow at 7% on a sustained basis. By 2022, we expect to bring down the poverty rate to just 14%. Today, we are in the process of completing a comprehensive tax reform program to further expand the fiscal space, making possible immense investments in infrastructure and human capital. Our ambitious infrastructure program benefits from the support of the ADB and other partner development institutions. With this program, we will increase public sector infrastructure spending to 7.3% of GDP by 2022. This program will link all islands and make all communities part of the mainstream of wealth creation. The infrastructure program will, at the same time, reduce our vulnerability to natural calamities. It will also foster the growth of manufacturers that will lessen our dependence on remittances from overseas workers and from the business process outsourcing sector. We are encouraged by the ADB 2030 strategy formulated by the present leadership of the institution. This roadmap offers a new vision and strategy for the bank to maintain its relevance and improve its capacity to adapt to changing conditions. It is fortunate that the bank today has sufficient financial resources to enable it to boldly expand operations and respond in a highly differentiated way to the growing diversity and aspirations of the member countries. We live in a world where the pace of change is dictated by rapid advances in digital technology. These technologies present us with the upsides as well as downsides. They could improve productivity dramatically, but they could also eradicate jobs and introduce greater inequalities. Our institutions must either master the technological surge or be swept away by it. There is a need to future-proof our economies so that technological change makes them strong rather than undermines them. Smart technologies bring great promise, but also some amount of peril. The ADB, as the region's main concourse of development ideas, should help member countries to better harness the forces of technological change. It needs to develop the means to support member countries from falling into the wrong side of the digital divide. Rapid and especially disruptive technological progress carries both risks and rewards. The ADB is a vital institution for the region, ensuring the risks are mitigated and rewards evenly distributed. As we adapt to a more technologically infused environment, we know that technology could dramatically improve productivity, but they could also radically transform the way our societies are structured. They will demand skills our schools were not prepared to provide. They will produce virtual constituencies our political orders were not conceived to include. They will dramatically improve access to the financial system, but also open doors to such things as virtual currencies that no government is prepared to regulate. ADB Strategy 2030 is a good beginning. It is not a fully developed program for fully adjusting to the new economic balance of power, as well as coping with the enormous forces unleashed by technologies. That program will evolve into place, but only if we are prepared to reinvent and rethink. Thank you and good day.
Thank you very much, Secretary Dominguez. To share with us a taste of the unique Filipino culture, sit back, watch, and listen as the Trumpets Play Shop Kids and the Mandaluyong Children's Choir infuse music and theater together with the Filipino spirit, to showcase the best of their creativity and talent.
It's a big, beautiful world out there, and I wish that I can make it better.
I dream that it becomes a world with no differences.
I wish that it could be a world where everyone can work as one. I hope that all our dreams and wishes will come true for our future. Nais kong maihip ng hangin, walang patutunguhan. Parang ibon wala ring agad. Lumipad ng lumipad. Nais kong lumipad. Nais ko rin maagos ng kahit saan man papalipad. Kahit nais na pumunti kahit ako'y nagmahal. Nais kong lumaboy. Nais kong makita ang mundo sa kanyang kasuluk-sulukan. Nais kong makita ang paligid kong puno ng kagandahan.
that was excellent. Thank you very much, Trumpets Play Shop Kids and Mandaluyong Children's Choir. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the official opening of the 51st Annual Meeting of the Asian Development Bank. Please remain seated as the Chair of the Board of Governors, the President and Secretary of ADB depart the ballroom. May I also request all governors and guests invited to the Governor's Luncheon to depart the ballroom for ADB headquarters. Please join us for a networking lunch at the Garden Ballroom, the Marquee, and Ease Bar on the second floor. Shuttle buses leave from the Garden Wing entrance after lunch. The business session will begin 1 p.m. at ADB HQ Auditorium. You are all invited. Thank you and have a good day.